Hey, everybody. This is Jake West from Comics Academy. I'm here with Melissa White, as always.
That's me.
And we're in the same place for once.
Oh my God, I get to look at your face.
I know.
What a touching.
It's me. In LA. We have Mike Shea from Miskatonic University.
Hell yeah.
Super good horror book. It's a little bit like The Breakfast Club, but in hell.
Yeah, we like that.
It's really good.
That was a really good
It's
one.
on Kickstarter right now. It's got 18 days left. So go back there right now for issue number 2.
Spend your money.
And then we have Invasion From Wrestletopia from Ed Kuehnel and, oh my God.
What?
I forgot your name. I'm so sorry.
Matt Entin.
You're going right now.
Matt. Oh my God.
Matt Entin.
Matt
Entin.
Entin. Yes, Matt Entin.
Wait, am I pronouncing that right? Am
Yeah,
I a jerk?
Entin. Yeah. It's
Oh.
I'm sorry, Matt.
Okay.
I'm very tired.
It's
no.
okay.
It's
He
not.
hasn't eaten his blood sugars very low.
Yeah, no.
But you know what? We are so excited to have this show today because we're talking about wrestling and we're talking about Cthulhu, and I think that's two things that all of the kids love. But before we get into that piece of sexiness, do you have any announcements for the kids?
Yeah. So the only real announcement is we're doing the giveaway for Miskatonic, and the #1 signed, and also Hitman and Injustice 2 signed from Chris Sabella. I'll be announcing the winners today.
What a nice.
Or the winner today, and then we'll be announcing another new giveaway.
Okay.
And it's actually going to be pretty spicy because we hit a couple of goals for follower counts. So 800 on Twitter, 350 on Instagram,
Oh my God,
and we
baby.
actually hit 100 subs on YouTube, which is super cool.
Look at
It actually literally happened after the last episode.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Cool.
you're doing.
Hey guys, make that 101 because I'm gonna subscribe.
Oh, yeah, you're loving us
Thank
because we
you.
love you. Speaking of loving you, why don't we just get into the nitty gritty? We'll start. You know what? We're gonna start with actually no. The question that we're gonna do, we're gonna ask is your favorite pie, and I want to know who you are at the first. And Mike, why don't you kick us off?
You know, I'm gonna throw it out there. I like a good chocolate silk pie. Have you tried that?
Oh, hell yeah, man.
Yeah, that's where I go.
Sensual.
All right. I like that. It's a good choice. Good choice, Mike.
Thank you.
Sensual.
Matt Entin.
It's a little autumnal for right now, but I'm gonna go with pumpkin.
Nice.
Oh,
Fair enough.
okay.
No,
All right.
You know, it's about 6 months away. No.
Fall is close. It's It's always coming.
Can I say pumpkins grow year round, and the fact that they've been relegated to a certain part of the year.
So I'm gonna give that to you.
According to science, yes. But according to the laws of nature, yes, pumpkins do technically grow year round. But the time that we get our pumpkin pie on is during the fall. So you know what?
Yeah.
That's when it happens. So that's when I just gorge myself on pumpkin pie. All right. And Ed, why don't you lay it on us?
I love peach pie, and I'll do anything to get it. I'll steal it. I'll steal it off your windowsill.
I knew it.
That's what happened.
That's what happened to my peach
Put
pie.
that pie out there to let it cool. And I heard someone say yoink, and then it was gone. It was you. It was you. Wait, no one introduced themselves. That was also it. You have to introduce yourself.
I said, Ed Kuehnel, it's Matt Entin, and then it's Mike Shea.
Yeah, that's all they need to know about us. Our favorite pies, really.
All you need to know. Nothing else but just favorite pies.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Yeah.
That was the show.
Thank you, everyone. This is the podcast. Joining us.
So no, tell us about your work. Tell us about where to find you. Just introduce yourself to the kids.
You want to go first?
Oh, no, Matt, go first.
You go first. So my name is Matt Entin, has been established, and my favorite pie is pumpkin pie. My day job is as a video game writer. I've been doing that for about 16 years, sometimes with Ed over there. He is my occasional partner in crime. We also wrote a horror movie together called Lumberjack Man.
Yeah.
With X plays Adam Sessler and Michael Madsen. Those are the only two people you probably might know in it.
Oh my god,
That's amazing.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
I heard a lot of this movie, and I really want to watch it.
I'm doing that. It's literally what I'm doing tonight.
What titles have you guys worked on in regards to video games?
So we started off, the first game we ever did together was Leisure Suit Larry Magna Cum Laude. So if you want to talk some toxic masculinity, that's sort of ground zero for that.
Yeah.
And since then, we mostly do sort of indie stuff. We've done a lot of work with Twisted Pixel. We worked on Comic Jumper. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Ed, you worked on what was it? Gunstringer.
Gunstringer.
And Loco Cycle, which no one played. We worked on Loco Cycle. And then probably our most known title as of late was Valiant Hearts, which was a World War I game we did.
Wait, you wrote Valiant Hearts?
Yeah.
That's like one of my favorite games. That's
So
amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Actually, like doing the damn thing. I mean, you were already doing the damn thing, but oh my god, that is awesome.
I'm sorry, I wasn't on the praise level yet, but now
you're
there. It's like, you made Valiant Hearts.
He was trying to hold himself back,
honored
and
right
now he's just like, I can't hold it
that
back
you
anymore.
are on our live show. That's
That is
so cool.
Really, really cool. Oh
Thank
my
you.
god.
Not to leave out Mike, of course. Mike, your shit is the dope.
That is awesome. And actually now, this is a perfect segue to Ed. Why don't you tell us about yourself?
Yeah, so as Matt said, we got our start in video games. I started like about 2001. We were working together at the same studio, and that's how we met, how we started working together. We both left that studio 2006, and since then, I've been freelancing full-time as a writer in games, and I think Matt sort of hit the highlights there of what we worked on together. After Valiant Hearts, I worked another title I worked on that people may be familiar with was that Mario Rabbids crossover that was on the Switch.
Ooh, I like that game.
It was a lot of fun. And we've done just a lot of stuff, a lot of casual games for older audiences that probably people aren't super familiar with. But yeah, and then the comic book was we've collaborated a lot on, like Matt said, on some film and on games, and then so the comic book came out of that. But and our mutual shared love of professional wrestling.
Yeah. I mean, that's awesome. Mike, why don't you introduce yourself to the kids?
Sure, I'm Mike Shea, and I have done nothing with my professional life.
Same, bro.
Same. It's okay. We're all failures here.
Except for them. Like, kind of screw you guys, but okay. We love you.
Yeah.
No, but Mike.
So I've been a professional writer, editor, journalist, graphic designer, doing more the professional side, the really boring. And so, yeah, Segway decided, tear some shit up with Chuluthu and, do comics.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm with it, but also you described this as boring stuff. It's like, these are all things that actually help you make a comic. Like, these are all things that are helpful.
I was just thinking as Mike was talking, I mean, we're not so different in one regard in that, all the video games Matt and I have worked on, a lot of them have been really fun. Some of them were just work, but they're all stuff we did for other people, right? Mm-hmm. And this comic book, I mean, I don't know, from 46 years old, this comic book is the first thing I've ever done that it's just, Matt and I kind of putting our own skin in the game and put ourselves out there, which we haven't done before. I mean, we created that. We technically own the property. For what it's worth.
And I mean, there's a good market for WWE comics right now. Like, WWE it makes all of the money. It's like $1 billion industry, I think.
Right, but also there's a huge fan base for wrestling. So I mean, it is something to be fucking said. Oh, there we go.
That's your one.
And now I'm done.
That was fast.
Goodbye. It's been a great show. Oh my god. Taken right back to like to grade school now. Oh my god, traumatizing. But so like, yeah, by the end of that, I'm gonna owe you so much money. Yeah, no, there's something to be said for making your own thing and putting your stamp on the world and saying, this is mine, this is something I did, and screw you guys, I'm gonna make what I want. Especially after very long and awesome careers doing things for other people. So like in doing what you want, in doing your own thing, how did you guys like get to the sweet nuggets of these stories? Like what brought these out?
So I'll just start. Oh, let's start with Mark. Let's start with you. You got to up there.
Want to start with Mike?
Yeah, Mike.
Yeah.
Mike, where'd you get your inspiration?
Our inspiration. So my co-creator Ryan Mendoza, who's the artist on the book, we did some fan projects before. Nothing we wanted to show anybody, anything like that. And then we started thinking we wanted to do our own series that we could put on Kickstarter, really try and get out there, and something we could sell, something that could be ours. And so we were kicking around ideas, and I was kicking around superheroes, and he was like, no superheroes. So then we started kicking around the idea of, well, how about something really kind of weird, like a weird school, like Miskatonic University, but like younger, like a breakfast club in hell. And we that right there, that's a good idea. And so we kicked around, basing it at Lovecraft, and so Miskatonic High. And so Miskatonic is a made-up place in the Lovecraft mythos, but it comes from the name of a real place, which is the Housatonic, which is out in Western Massachusetts, which is where I used to live. So it's like, I know that I can do that. So
that's cool.
So decided, okay, he was really into doing tentacle monsters and things like that, and I was really into doing someplace that I had been with some high school kids, and not doing high school kids because that's illegal, but
I was gonna say this is getting dangerously close to hentai territory. It's just like, well, he likes drawing tentacles, and I like high school kids.
Thank you for that.
Which, by the way, this book is neither of those things.
None of those things. None of those things.
Whatsoever.
But what? We just scored the entire hentai audience is coming onto this book now. So not so
bad. There, that's kind of a big audience.
I'm ready. Did you? Oh no, I'm not going to talk about porn, but I kind of want to talk about porn for Women's History Day. YouPorn or RedTube or one of the porn sites, Pornhub released what women search for. Hentai was a huge population. So welcome, hentai fans.
Well, if you had to choice between most of the male population and tentacles, I can see why the women would pick tentacles.
They'd be into it. So welcome, hentai fans, to our show. Also read Miskatonic High. No sex, but also
not like that.
God, I'm a terrible person. We welcome everyone. But still, we're talking about Miskatonic High. We're talking about how awesome it is. And so you guys were talking about these two awesome things that you love. And then how did that blend together? Like, how did that come into doing Breakfast Club in Hell?
Well, so think about it this way. So, you have madness and an entire universe where they just don't care about you. And it's like, terrible people doing horrible things. And then you also have Lovecraft monsters. And we thought, those two go together.
Especially in a setting like high school, right? Where everything is awful.
Exactly. So we felt like high school kids were like the perfect audience for this, because they are sort of living a horror life. So go ahead and make a horror story out of it. So our tagline is actually 5 teenagers who take on Lovecraft's monsters and their small town high school, and they can't decide which is worse. So
I'm into it.
Yeah, exactly. So there's quite a bit of that. The second issue primarily focuses on a girl who's like been picked on her whole life, and it's like just hated her whole life, and it's like, she might choose the monsters.
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting.
Okay. That's interesting.
Also, I just gotta say, probably one of my favorite pages in this whole book, and it doesn't even technically out of the plot is just hilarious.
Mhm.
It's just like there's a previously on page, it's the second page, and there's the pink hair girl, and she just says, previously, nothing has happened previously. This is only the first issue. Seriously, what did you expect?
What did you
So
expect?
awesome.
What did you expect?
Like, it was so awesome when I was reading this, because I was like, this is definitely written like or episodically. Like,
Yeah,
it feels like a television show in a comic book, so you can really get into it.
So you have like that high school drama show, but you also have literally the next page, some dude sacrificing to the Cthulhian gods.
You know,
Exactly. That's
Like,
feels
Yeah.
monster of the week. So if you're into that kind of like finding that drama, the relationships of these teens, and then you get these really cool Cthulhian monsters, or Lovecraftian monsters. Like, yes, I'm into it. I vibe with it. And if it turns into a show, I would also be into it.
Oh, thank you.
I could see it being a TV show in all
Yeah,
honesty.
yeah, no, for real,
Yeah.
for real.
Yeah, so
Well-
the way we kind of set it up is we were actually going a little bit older school because we're old people with kids. Is going X-Files on it, so like Monster of the Week sort of
Yeah.
thing. And you got these undercurrent themes going on and these undercurrent plots going on, and suddenly Smokey Man shows up, and so we're going to tie it all together at the end. But for the most part, they're standalone issues. So you could you could just pick up number 2, and you don't have to have read number 1. You can pick up number 3, and you don't have to have read the other ones. Really, rather than doing the new form of comics writing, which is it's all one long thing, we're breaking it up. You get individual stories. If you don't like this issue, try next issue. It's going to be completely different.
That's certainly an interesting way to go about it,
But
because
actually it's
that's
really
how
accessible.
comics kind of started.
Yeah,
really.
it's like super accessible, like situation for everyone to be involved in, and it's got so many great things to be interested in too. So you get continuing storylines, but you're able to jump into them really easily. I feel like that's also happening with Invasion from Planet Wrestletopia, like episodic, obviously continuing arcs and everything, but definitely driving that like in an episodes kind of together.
We are, exactly. We want to. I mean, this first story arc will be 6 issues, and then it'll be collected into a trade paperback that will go into stores and all that stuff. And then hopefully we'll do more stories. But I think for us it was really important that we that we don't just meander. That we tell like a story with a real beginning, middle, and an end, and that is very, that it's just that the payoff is there, and that it's very satisfying, and people aren't just reading it and then, story arcs sort of die, fizzle out, and start anew without any recognition or fanfare. That's something I struggle with sometimes. With some comics is issues.
Though on the other hand, you make up for it in bear wrestling.
Yeah.
I feel like Kodiak Jack is gonna have to have his own spin-off, because like the one thing people remember from issue 1 is that bear.
Honestly,
Well, the other thing I really remember, I don't want to ruin the first page, but Manifest Destiny is,
yes.
and that literally will make no sense unless you read it.
So read it. Read it is what we're saying.
Yeah.
But how did Invasion from, to go back to, I guess, to the original question, is how did this start for you guys?
So I'll start and then I'll turn it over to Matt. But we were laid off from our first game studio in 2006, which happens a lot. It happens to game developers. So we decided that we really liked working together. We'd get together and we kept writing, and we were writing screenplays at the time, which was really fun. And we were coming up with all kinds of different stories. And I think it started with this word, Wrestletopia. And then it started with, like, how funny would it be if there's a planet where wrestling is kind of real and it's their whole way of life? It's not. It's, and then it was like, how funny would it be if our planet and their planet sort of collided, and then our only hope were to be in the hands of our own professional wrestlers, not the most reliable people usually behind the scenes, Right.
I mean, John Cena is a national treasure.
There's exceptions. We were just thinking about the typical sort of like, you got this retired wrestler who's maybe like wrestling in casinos and like, drinking heavily, and that's the guy we have to rely on to help us to save the planet. And then, it just took off from there. It was like, well, how would that happen? Well, what if he made, what if you had a wrestler, and this is sort of the elevator pitch, a disgruntled professional wrestler here on Earth who declares himself galactic champion of the universe to kind of just piss off his promoter. But he does it on live TV. And that TV signal travels into space. It gets captured by Wrestletopians who take it seriously, and the invasion starts from
interesting. So cool. And I also love the idea of these unreliable characters, like these real wrestler people, just having the fate of the world in their hands, and also the fate of wrestling in their hands. That's it just sounds amazing. So were you guys going for episodic, something that was episodic, something that had a sort of,
or are you going for a space opera?
I would. So our first 6-issue run is. There's nothing wrong with space operas. Star Wars is a space opera. So is Flash Gordon.
Saga is a space opera. It's one of the most
I see the first 6-issue run as being very sort of self-contained, and hopefully, if there's enough interest, I think we would like to change the focus to the actual planet of Wrestletopia. So instead of Invasion From Planet Wrestletopia, it's just Wrestletopia, because I sort of see Wrestletopia as a canvas on which you could tell an infinite amount of stories. It could be just this, like Marvel or DC, this sort of infinitely expandable universe. And there's just a great variety of stories we could tell there. But this first 6-issue run is very self-contained. As Ed said, it has a clear beginning, middle, and end.
So framing a story, both of your works, in terms of the writing process, in terms of especially working and collaborating, how do you guys do that? How do you guys communicate your process with your collaborators or with each other?
What do you think, Mike?
Oh, okay. So the way
I was going to pass it to Mike.
No.
Mike?
So the way it works with us is I usually ask Ryan what he wants to draw. If he's got any ideas, things that he wants to draw, and he'll give me a couple of ideas that he really wants to draw. He, wants to draw a ghost noir from 1950s or something, or he'll say, I want to do a Hollow World story, where they go down and tangle with dinosaur things, and so I'll think, okay, let me take that and go slot it into wherever it's going to fit in the bigger story, and just start going with it and see where it goes, and plop the characters in, see where the characters want to go, and take it back to him, and he'll be like, no, that's not what I want at all. And so, we go from there, and he says, yeah, let's do this. And I'll say, no, let's do that. And sooner or later, we get to a point where we both like the story. We both like where it's going. We like where the characters are going. We like what the monsters are doing. We like how it fits into the bigger thing. And I'll polish off the script, turn it over to him, and he'll just go nuts with the art on it. And when it comes back to me, I'll start lettering it. And when I letter it, it's like my second opportunity to write it. It's like, that's a real opportunity to, at this point, I've written about 7,000 words per panel. So I have to cut a few. So at that point, I'll cut it way down to figure out, okay, what is the minimum amount of words that I can do to tell this story, but also convey the characters, and so squeeze it in there, and we got a comic.
I just wanted to say real quick, your lettering, it's very much professional level lettering. And in particular, I really liked the balloons. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but these ones, the white outline around the black, and then with the lettering.
Yeah.
It just
The graphic design
really
is
stood out to me in regards to the horror genre because I hadn't seen lettering like that before.
It's very in keeping with the themes that are going on. And so talk to us a little bit about the lettering. Who did your lettering? You did the lettering?
Mike did
I did the lettering. Yeah, me.
Shut your mouth.
Everything.
Okay.
He's one of those people that can do more than one thing.
Well, so again, you know, part of my actual job was to do graphic design for people. So that sort of lent itself to doing comics like really well. So you can do a credits, you can do a thank yous page, and you can figure out lettering. And one of the things we realized really quickly is we started doing the lettering, or I started doing the lettering way over comics. You know, I was trying to do like Marvel lettering or somebody's lettering, and it's like, you know, that's not what our comic is. Our comic is younger than that. It's more DIY than that. It's got that feel about it. And so we sort of stripped it back and said, you know, let's keep this cool and simple without, you know, the lettering being in your face. Because the lettering doesn't need to be in your face. You know, when you have art as good as you have it, you don't need lettering to be in your face. You just need lettering to do a job.
Well, that's the job, right? Is to design something that fits within the total framework. That's what design is to bring all of these elements together into something cohesive. And that's really what you did. How does that process work then? You're going from like you writing the thing, or so Ryan comes up with like, this is what I want to talk about, and you're like, cool, write it, give it to Ryan, does it, and then he kicks it back to you for lettering.
Yep. Yeah. So again, the way that we work is we sort of co-plot. So it's like he's got ideas what he wants to draw. I have ideas, and so the good thing is he is way into Lovecraft and way into monsters, so he brings that side of it, and I'm way into like kitchen sink drama. So like I wrote one script that was like, it was 18 pages of people standing around talking. And I thought, you know, that's probably not what this comic is.
Yeah.
So again, it's the merger of those two, figuring out how we can work in the monsters, how we can work in like the really cool horror aspect, but also have solid characters you're gonna give a shit about.
Yeah.
That's the comic we want to make.
Yeah.
No, it sounds like you guys found the perfect level of collaboration in that regard.
Yeah, that's
where you're co-plotting it and you're working on each other's strengths.
Yeah.
And then also you're able to know your own weaknesses and then have that other person sort of cover for you, which is a really good way to do it.
Well, think about it this way is you have an artist, and the last thing you want to do, so you talk to comic book writers, and all of them want awesome artists to work on their work. You're not going to get that if you're telling them what to do all the time. If you're telling them, no, you drew that shit wrong, you got to draw it this way, or you got to draw what I want to draw. That's gonna last you like 4 issues, and then you're looking for a new artist, and that's
maybe 4.
Yeah, maybe 4. So really what we wanted to do was we wanted to come up with a comic that was both of ours, that we really feel both strongly engaged in, strongly feel ownership of, that we're going to want to do for a while.
Yeah, for real. Well, and you raised some points that I think that like Ed and Matt could really speak to too, because you guys are like as like co-creators and both writers working on this. Like
and you also were working together before in the video games.
Like you guys have a groove on how you guys communicate, but how do you take the groove that you've done and then be like, here guys, translate our
It's funny. I was gonna. So I'm listening to Mike's talk, and he is absolutely right about everything he said.
Yeah.
And we do the exact opposite.
We're totally the opposite.
You're like, that's something we should do.
Well,
yeah, your writers, and I've heard other writers say this, like famous writers will be like, you know, you talk to your art, like even like Brian Michael Bendis has a book out. Because we're new to the genre, we did a lot of and research, and he's like, you know, you must talk to your artist and ask them what they want to draw, and then write that in. We don't do that. We had this story that we loved. We worked on it a long time. We wrote our scripts, and then, you know, it's Matt and I. We started this little LLC, Suspicious Behavior Productions. We couldn't sue each other later. And then, no, and then we went and found an artist who was into it, and our requirements were we wanted a really good professional artist. It had to be someone who would return our emails, and someone who we could pay to draw what we wanted them to draw. Now, I will say, I think in our defense, we kind of said, look, this is what we want. You tell us if you have a different way you want to do to achieve this, or if you think we've done something here that's too crazy or dumb, or you can't draw, just fine. Just let us know. And when as far we have very minimal feedback. We're not artists. When they draw something, when they ask for feedback on pencils and things, it's the stuff we have is very minimal. We don't get into their business too much. And then, but I don't know that.
Well, it's almost like you respect them on a professional level to make those decisions.
Yeah.
Even though necessarily you don't have that sort of personal connection that some of the writer-artist teams do when you have a smaller team.
Well, especially for something that you guys have been working on for a long time. Like
over 10 years. This has been in various forms.
10 years?
Yeah.
And I just want to say that neither of those approaches are wrong, like at all.
Oh yeah.
You can work for whoever you're working with.
Right,
So,
like do with you. Do with the fullest of you.
Yeah.
And it's also like when you're working on something for 10 years, I want to emphasize 10 years here. It's like you know what you want, like you've developed a really great idea, and it's about finding somebody that can work within that framework. So that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I will say we're not overly prescriptive with what we put on in the script. So let's say we have 5 panels on this page, and our artist comes back to us and says, look, I'd rather do this, with 3 panels, and this is how I see communicating the story. Dan Scotty, who did the first 3 issues, and we'll actually be working with Kendall Good, who's a veteran of Boom Comics WWE series. He'll be doing the remainder of the series. Both of them all the time come back with us, and they have way better ideas on how to visually communicate the story. And they've been doing this a lot longer than we have, and we respect that. And more often than not, we say, go with it. That's all you. Like, if you feel this is the best way to do it.
I think it's just if Dan or Kendall had said, I'd really like to draw a dragon, we'd be like, that's nice.
Draw a dragon, man.
Right? It's like, it's not about dragons.
It's finding that balance. But how did you find your people? Like, this is another thing, because that's a huge thing for writers. We're always so thirsty for good artists, and we're so constantly pitching, constantly trying to get somebody on the level with us.
I was born and raised here in Portland, and then Portland became this big comic book town. Recently. And so there's a lot of talent here. And again, for Matt and I knew nothing about comics as a genre. I had to sit down with Ben Dewey, who is I think he's a pretty famous artist. He worked on Beast of Burden and a bunch of other stuff for Dark Horse. And I had to ask, I took him to lunch and said, well, how do you make a comic book? What's what do you need? Who do you hire? And again, then it was just finding professionals who would, and we were paying, like Matt and I pay, like we pay them their rate. So it was just a matter of,
they don't just get exposure.
Right.
No.
You don't pay exposure.
Oh.
Yeah, nobody. I didn't.
I don't know if I can work for you, man. I need to work for free.
And we don't even really have exposure even to give. We're like, you want to work on a wrestling alien comic that no one's going to publish?
There is a video, just in regards to video production. It's really funny, and it's Craigslist ad. Need a red camera operator. Bring your own camera, no pay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our ace in the hole was we had money to pay someone to do a job. That was our ace in the hole. And it was, it was just a matter of finding people who would return our emails and say yes. That was kind of I mean, we found Dan, which and he said yes, and we thought that was going to be great. And then he recommended, like, I like this letterer, and I like Marissa Louise, this colorist, and
yeah. If you haven't noticed, our colors are amazing, and that's all Marissa Louise right there.
Yeah,
Marissa Louise,
just the first page, and like I wanted to talk about the quote that you guys chose for the first page. It was really interesting.
Oh,
But
from
there was,
Ephesians?
Yeah, from it's a Bible quote
Just like
for a wrestle.
so
Well, Ed has the story about that.
so it's an actual, of course, it's an actual quote from the Bible. It's a little bit
And-
together. Should we read it? Does it matter?
Oh,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Do you want to read it?
All right. Okay. This is like class again. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Stand firm then, with the belt of truth buckled around your waist.
I think we just
Tried to bring it to church a little bit.
that quote is an interesting quote. I was reading, I think, Ric Flair's autobiography or biography that someone wrote with him, and he talked about how there's this wrestler, Claude Thunderbolt Patterson, an African American wrestler who was a big star with African American fans, especially in the South, Deep South.
Yeah,
and he would read that quote before matches. And,
that is so cool.
Really
what?
cool. That's super cool.
That's super dope.
Yeah, and it also, I had some attachment to it because I would I'm not especially religious, but I would like see that quote everywhere, and it would just like, all right, maybe I shouldn't give up on this Wrestletopia thing because I keep seeing this quote.
Yeah.
I will quote about
It's so
wrestling.
perfect for the premise too. It's
As
just-
the Blues Brothers would say,
Oh, yeah.
as the Blues Brothers would say, as where I got my namesake, Jake from Joel Get Jake. And I'm not joking about that, by the way. Where I'm from Gat.
I mean, it's like, it is really perfect and a great way to kick off the series. But we were I want to go back to talking about Marissa Louise and how sick the colors are. She's like an amazing colorist. So please, just more work for her, everyone out there. But also the colors in here and picking the color scheme was really intense. Now, did you give Marissa the reins on picking the color scheme here, or did you guys like?
You just let Marissa do her thing. Like she's that good. Like she gave us a bunch of color scheme options for the cover to choose from. She gave us like 20 different color schemes, and all of them were like brilliant. We could have picked anyone and it would have worked. Beyond that, everything in there, we just kind of let her go. And I really did not develop an appreciation for what a colorist can add to a title until I saw her work, because she really understands the emotions of each scene, and she understands what colors are necessary to sort of convey and enhance those emotions.
Yeah.
The fact that like she uses that cool palette where we see Rory as like a hopeless drunk wrestling like a small show at a Native American casino in the middle of the desert was just like perfect, like perfectly portrayed like how I'm supposed to feel as a reader if I'm leafing through the comic. You know, you don't even have to read the words to kind of know what you're supposed to feel.
No, for sure.
And in color comics, coloring is a huge component of the emotional like feeling that you get from it. And then also just like being able to emphasize better with characters.
And like bring impact to it. So I mean, fantastic work there. You really get that, and also you get the real tangible feel of like also, you know, late 70s, early 80s like wrestling, both in the design and in the colors chosen. So like fantastic work from you guys putting that together for sure. I always wonder, especially like for myself as a writer too, it's just like, how do other writers do their thing? Am I doing it wrong? The answer is yes. But like, we're all just kind of figuring this out. But specifically when it comes to like paneling and how you guys like do that. So I want to talk about the technical aspects of making this comic for you guys as writers. Like, are you guys fans of like the DC sort of like, you know, 8-panel situation? Do you like to scale it back to 5, 6? Like, where do you live?
Question.
Mike.
Mike.
You should know by now that you're always answering first, Mike.
Damn it. So where we live is we live 6-panel page, 6-panel grid. I am always encouraging Ryan to break out of that. You know, just draw triangles. You know, draw a circle. It's not gonna hurt. But one of the things that we talked about a lot was when you put too many panels on a page, you really make it hard to see things. You make it hard to put a fair amount of dialogue in there that's going to really stick. You just make it too hard, and we didn't really want to do that. So we wanted, you know, more of a 6-panel page. I try to stick to like 5 panels or less per page. You know, really give him the room to draw the art, to really make people feel what's going on in that page. You know, I was making a joke earlier that, you know, normally when I sit down to write a script, you know, I'm just banging away. And then, you know, once I'm done, I look up and I start going through and figuring out how many panels I have. So maybe like 5 panels per page. And, you know, by the time I'm done, I'm usually on page 110. So I got to get it back to 24. So, you know, you write the first draft and you just start cutting. Everything's got to go. And really, as you cut, you figure out what the story is. And you say, okay, that's not the story. This isn't the story. This is my through line. I got to have this. Everything else is sort of extra. And, you know, when you do that, you can get it back to that 24 pages. And if you're lucky, every now and again, you get a page where you only have to have 1 panel and you can really show something that's really cool.
Yeah. So, and okay, now you guys are on the hook for this, and we'll start with Matt, since you seem to be like kicking it off to Ed all the time. Yeah, that's right. I called on you.
Though I will say, just real quick, a really cool example of paneling in Miskatonic. It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
The way that it moves across the page. I'm sorry. I don't have the physical with me. I accidentally left it at home. I'm going to have to ship it out when I get back.
Okay.
I would love to take credit for the paneling there, but really a lot of it is Ryan. You know, you write it, the way we write it is, I say, okay, I want 5 panels on this page. The second panel is going to be the biggest. It's going to be this, you know, and then leave it up to Ryan to figure out how it's all going to fit on the page, because we've done things where I've told him, okay, you know, make this panel this, make this panel this, and make that panel that. And it doesn't work. And, you know, trust your artist to be able to make the page. And again, if they're invested in the story, they're going to do it 10 times better than you could possibly come up with in the script.
That's a really, like, of course they're going to be able to lay it out and make it visual, but there's also those little nuggets that you really want to put in there, like certain perspectives. And I know we're talking about laying out the panels, but like perspectives that you want to add, like you want a bird's eye, or you want, you know, to set something up in a certain way. So like adding those little nuggets in there are cool. And sometimes they can enhance those things, but sometimes there are things that you really want to see. Like if you can squeeze in this tiny inset panel of a that would be really awesome. Squeeze it, just get it in there.
For us, that usually happens secondary. So like he sends me back like pencils or inks, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh shit, I forgot to show people jumping, or I forgot to show whatever.
Yeah.
Please add a panel in doing this. And he's like, no, go away. He's like, I just spent 8 hours on this page. I'm not going to add another panel in. And, you know, then he goes away and he thinks about it. He's like, yeah, you know what? Storytelling wise, you need that panel. And so he'll squeeze it right in there. And you're like, just made me look better.
Like, oh, thank God we caught that. Yeah, no, I love going back to I'm like, oh, actually, this doesn't make any sense because I'm terrible. Help.
Yeah. And it's very frustrating that the artists that are not going to return your emails anymore.
Yeah, that's why you don't work with those people. But you do work with people who are like trying to collaborate with you, and they want to tell the story, and they want to tell the story better. Like, thank you, Ben. Thank you.
I just want to give a quick shout out to Ryan, because when I was reading the comic, I noticed that unlike a lot of the artists that I have read recently, he does not break the panel like ever. But at the same time, he doesn't need to, which is really interesting to me, because I haven't I haven't seen that for a while because people just love to break the panel all the time now.
Yeah.
Not to say it's a bad thing.
No, it's not a bad
I like
thing.
it personally.
But it's like I like that he's not doing that, but he's able to do it really, really well. He keeps it nice and tight. He keeps it contained, which is nice.
Yeah, you were talking before, you know, about some of his art, and you know, he's got this really classic comic book part of him, and I think that's sometimes when the comparison to like the Archie comes along, because he really
that was what I was thinking about actually.
Like a classic kind of comic where, you know, you can look at it and every character on the page is doing something different. It's like they're not just standing around waiting, they're actually being themselves, and it's like, I don't know how he does that. Like, I would be so sick of all the different characters. I would, you know, draw them as stick figures, but he really puts in the time. You know, that's his training. That's what he loves to do. And, you know, I am so lucky that I'm working with him.
Yeah, and I will say, I've been reading Archie recently. I'm actually weirdly an Archie fan now. I never was a kid. Like, the new Archie is actually really good.
Really, really good.
And their Archie Afterlife series
like
reminds me a lot of Miskatonic.
Right? Like, it's a really, really cool, like I guess pairing. Oh, we're going to talk about that too. But it's a good pairing for, like, if you like Archie comics, like, you will definitely love Miskatonic High. Like, you would be into it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, that's kind of what we were thinking okay, this is awesome. We're going to get the Lovecraft fans over here. We're going to get the ones who like high school comedy over here. And we're going to have this like massive audience. And now I'm thinking maybe we're going to get like this many people.
Well, it's a game of figuring out like where your audience is.
Your audience is the Archie horror audience. I can guarantee it.
Like, they're definitely part of that. And there's a lot of crossover appeal.
Yeah.
And I'm going to cut you off.
No, I was. I mean, you know, the people at Earth have been doing all sorts of cool different things, like, you know, comics or with the Predator and you know, some noir stuff. So I mean, I'm looking at the Miskatonic High Kickstarter page now. It looks really cool. I definitely get that vibe. I mean, I think, like, you know, people who publish Archie could pick this up, and it would fit in.
Yeah, hey, you know, if they want to pick it up, what am I going to do? Say no?
What am I going to do? Say
like, no, you get out of here, filthy Archie fans.
But also, just real quick, I wanted to talk about the fact that breaking the paneling in Wrestletopia makes a hell of a lot of sense because of the type of book it is.
Oh, no, definitely.
And I really like that because, like, this bear, like, his arm breaks the panel when he throws it down, you know?
It's a bear.
It's a bear. He's fighting a bear, but it's just like, and like when he goes for the flying leap and it goes across the two panels off the side, like, that's perfect for this kind of book. And I think a lot of people don't recognize paneling is a huge component of comics because it's sequential art for one, and like all the time we have people, what the heck?
There's two Eds.
Whoa.
There's two Eds.
Hello, Ed.
Sorry about that.
No, it's fine.
No, it's all good.
No,
breaking the panel makes perfect sense, and there's a lot of inset panels, which, I mean, we see those a lot. Like, we see it, but they're really nicely used to really emphasize these really strong moments. So when you guys are doing your script, right, and you're writing out these panels first, like how do you put in how many panels you want in there, and then, like, you know, like, hand it off? Like, how does that work for you?
We average, and we're usually 5 to 7 panel ballpark. But as I said, if Dan and now Kendall have any different ideas of how to best lay out the page, then we're always open to that. We can. We tend to be like, we're fairly descriptive, I'd say, when it comes to settings and to action, and especially if we're introducing new characters. But more often than not, like, we seldom, and Ed, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, we seldom give like camera angles or anything. We kind of free the artist up to really just communicate the story as best as they see, you know, it being, you know,
it's similar. Matt and I have written screenplays, and it's similar. Like, we don't want to get involved in any cinematography, and very rare occasions you might say, okay, we need to focus on this because it's important later or something. But we're not cinematographers. We want to just, you know, 5-6 panels a page, let the artist decide how to use that real estate most effectively. I would say we are kind of precious with the scripts. I mean, our scripts like a standard comic book script, but while we're writing, I'm super precious about like, okay, I got 23 pages and I got this much story to tell, and I'm going to lay out my panels, and I'm going to before I start just writing, dialogue, everything's very kind of set in stone as far as pages, panels, what's happening in the panel, and what needs to be, what dialogue needs to be there. So it's we're new to comics, so I think the training wheels have not come off for Matt and I quite yet.
Well, that's interesting because you guys had a hell of a start.
I mean, I was like, I don't think that's entirely accurate, but okay.
Because this is definitely a professional level book.
Right?
Like, well. I mean, any comic that we have on the show, easily a professional level book.
Very much so. Very much so. Like, and that's kind of the awesome thing about doing this with collaborating with all these awesome people, right? And working for as long as we've bled and cried over our projects, like being able to do it and make it our own is awesome. I brought this up earlier, but I always think it's so interesting because we were talking about Archie comics being like a perfect pairing for Miskatonic. Like if you like Archie, like then you'll like this. If you what's your perfect pairing for Invasion from Planet Wrestletopia?
Well, I'm gonna comic. It's almost like, of course, the natural inclination is to go towards Boom Comics, WWE, but there's definitely like any of the Infinity Marvel series because we're talking giant stakes with like a pretty large cast.
Yeah.
I mean,
and big DC or Marvel events. It's very much sort of on that scale.
It's a sci-fi.
Yeah.
I mean, I would describe it as a sci-fi action comedy. And one thing we've had a lot of people review it, and one thing we hear over and over and over again is you do not have to be a fan of wrestling to really enjoy this comic book. And indeed, like I said,
I'm not really a fan of wrestling, and even I really like this book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So sci-fi action comedy. I think
sci-fi action comedy,
which describes so many comics.
Yeah.
So like Guardians of the Galaxy.
Like if you're into Star Wars, you'd be into this. Like if you were into, the stakes are so delightfully high and so delightfully ridiculous. So I feel like if we were even going to go as far as like in terms of movies, like what you would be pairing with, like I kind of feel like there's a Super Trooper situation. Like,
so what's the movie where they send this black astronaut to the moon, and then he goes to the other side of the moon, and there's Nazis? There's a movie like that, and I'm just like, this is the same level of cosmic absurdity.
I know what you're. It's funny. The premise is familiar to me, but I cannot, for the life of me, come up with the name of that movie.
Come back to me. I'll find it.
Wait, well, we're gonna. Okay, you
find
it.
So someone we were on a podcast and someone asked me, and I said it's sort of like combine like The Wrestler, so the movie with Mickey Rourke. Because there are like actual emotional stakes. We are sort of talking about substance abuse and depression and all sorts of anxiety with like Mars Attacks.
Oh yeah, okay, I like that. I dig it. I vibe with it.
Wrestling meets.
Dynamite is real good.
I was gonna say Wrestling Meets Galaxy Quest. I think is another one we heard.
Into it. These are all fantastic pairings. Do you guys watch movies or listen to music, or did you find it?
I found it. It's Iron Sky.
Oh yeah, it was in my Netflix queue forever.
It's the weirdest movie. It's a grindhouse. It's a grindhouse.
Yeah.
So, but it's got that sci-fi element.
Strikes back.
Yeah,
I can't even.
It's such a weird movie, and I don't want to ruin it. But there is one really, really funny part, and I don't know if I want to ruin it or not.
Don't ruin it.
No, I won't ruin it.
Okay.
But
I'm gonna watch it.
There it is.
Yeah, we're all doing this.
Watch this movie right after you read Wrestletopia.
Like how about like
And of course after you read Miskatonic, which I can't hold up right now.
read it, and then get your like space Nazi on, because why not? Why not?
Back Miskatonic High on Kickstarter, and subscribe to Comics Academy YouTube.
Oh, you know what?
Yeah.
Thank you for that sweet
Thank you.
plug. We're actually okay. So we're coming up on time, and we usually ended on something fun. We talked about your favorite pies.
I think I got one.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Lay it on us.
Favorite professional wrestlers.
Oh,
Oh wait. Ooh, Star Burning. Oh, is that your comic that's coming out for Comic Day? I
Just
wanted to
real
mention
quick, if I can make a plug, back to Miskatonic Kickstarter, and also on Free Comic Book Day, our publisher, we did sign with a publisher eventually, and they're going to be releasing our first 3 issues on Comixology. And so they've got this Starburns Presents #2 at stores for Free Comic Book Day. It'll have 8 pages of the first issue of Wrestletopia, so you can check it out for free.
Oh.
And some other great stuff. You can see our protagonist, Rock and Roll, Rory Landell, has the Nasquatch, a race car loving Sasquatch. That's a different comic from Starburns. And B Squad, and we've got Halicious on there, and Starburns has a bunch of cool stuff going on, so it's all in this.
anything I don't like.
Honestly, this sounds like a great way to spend.
Actually, what's really funny is before I even knew about your guys' book, I had seen that. I'm just like, I'm gonna get that on Free Comic.
Yeah, definitely pick it up.
Yeah,
And favorite
Free Comic Day is May 9th this
No,
year.
it's May 4th, right?
No, it's
right.
It's May
May the
4th.
4th
Yeah.
be with you.
Yeah, yeah.
Saturday,
Okay.
May 4th. It's a week from today.
Saturday of May. So
Yeah, so get it. It's this week.
go
Do
to your
it.
local shop. They'll have free stuff. Just walk in. They'll give it to you for free. That's why it's Free Comic Book Day.
Yeah.
It's dope.
Come on, man.
All right, and your favorite wrestler?
Yeah, your favorite wrestler.
So I'll give a couple honorable mentions here. So it was funny when I was a kid, and today I always struggled with my weight, and then it's very funny to me to look back and realize that my favorite wrestlers were these fat guys that still kicked ass, and were brawlers. So it was like Hangman Bobby Jaggers, Dusty Rhodes, Playboy Buddy Rose were all these overweight slobs that still would beat the hell out of people. But I know it's unoriginal, but you just can't. I can listen to Ric Flair promos in the car, like when I'm driving around.
I mean, yeah.
Honestly, there is nothing wrong with loving Ric Flair. Embrace it. At this point in our lives, who cares? Just love him.
Flawed human being, but he's just so great to wrestling. So.
Into it. Okay, Matt, it's your turn.
Also, not an very exciting choice, but Macho Man, Randy Savage.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, just such an original persona. If you actually listen to the content of his promos, just totally surreal. And for me, like he was the total package in a way that Hulk Hogan never was. Also, as far as I know, not horribly racist like Hulk Hogan is. But just like great in-ring abilities, and also just brilliant on the mic.
You may not love it, but you're gonna learn to like it.
And now the gift potential, the sweet memes that come
I
out
don't
of
know.
that.
My
just
favorite thing that I've ever seen with Macho Man Randy Savage is there's a little game called Skyrim. Skyrim, and there's a mod you can get where you can turn all the dragons into Macho Man. And they scream, "Oh yeah!" instead of it's
like,
amazing.
It's
You
true.
just hear "Oh yeah" from the sky. And you're terrified.
Watching it on Twitch, like mods on Twitch, I'm just like, yes.
It's so
Please.
See, I'm sorry. I have to mention this real quick. I'm sorry, Mike, but my favorite meme of all time is there was a day several years ago where this like Christian cult thought it was going to be the apocalypse and we were all going to die, and everyone was having a lot of fun with it. The day was approaching, and unfortunately, like the day before, Macho Man died. And of course, that was very sad. And the next day, know, the world did not end. So someone put this meme out of like God about to send thunderbolts onto Earth, but then Macho Man Randy Savage, who died, with like a flying elbow smash. Like, that's why the world didn't die, because
That
beautiful.
is honestly, that should be the only religion following that.
Honestly,
Like,
I feel like that is a religion in and of itself.
Just
right there.
we've narrowly avoided several apocalypses because of Macho Man.
I
Randy
believe
Savage.
it's Randy Savage suplex God for your sins.
it's called Randy.
I would go to that church so bad. I would be there.
Oh man, not to like poke fun at religion or anything. Like
No.
being religious is fine, but
No,
like
no.
that idea just seemed hilarious.
That sounds good. That's what I want in the Bible. Okay,
Mike,
it's your turn. We finally
Mike,
got
we're
to
gonna
you.
call on you again.
It's your turn.
What's your turn?
Well, you know, I'm thinking, Mankind. I'm thinking,
Ooh.
The Undertaker, because he's horror comics. But really, the guy, when I was watching, that I would like to see every time was Vincent McMahon. You know, when he came up.
Big man.
Unexpected choice. So, it was meta. You didn't know what was real, what wasn't real, who hated who. Was it all just an act? It was like, you can't script this stuff. This is crazy. And then
They
he
do
gets the whole family love. What the
Just
hell is
like
But his involvement,
by themselves,
like
it's so ridiculous.
him becoming a character himself and actually wrestling on several occasions, just like so beautiful. Just the slimy wrestling promoter person that just gets way too involved is perfect. So well chosen.
Yeah. This is like if Morrison wrote, wrestling, he would just, put himself in there, and that's basically what Vincent McMahon did. It's like great comic writing, just like me.
Great.
Like it.
That is very accurate. That's definitely what's happening.
Yep.
Well chosen. I've been thinking about it while you guys have been talking, and I keep landing on two very popular choices because I'm a trash person. But also I just like them, so deal with it. I grew up on The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Oh.
And
You got to pick one because they're rivals.
The Rock. No question.
The Rock is beautiful and amazing. I loved Stone Cold Steve Austin coming out with beer cans together and then just power chugging and then being let's fucking do this. And I was like, that guy's a badass, first of all. Second of all, trust and believe Stone Cold Steve Austin is going to kick your ass. I was there for it. But I definitely still love The Rock. I do still quote The Rock. I still want to be with The Rock. Call me the Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Call me. That said, don't run for president, but just call me. I love Stone Cold Steve Austin.
I'm going to preface my favorite one with a knock-knock joke. Knock, knock.
Who's there?
It's John Cena!
You did. You know what? We should have seen this coming, considering we already talked about John
Yeah.
Cena. We should have seen it coming.
I love that meme so much. Oh my god, it's so funny.
Just recently won, I think, the Nobel Prize for Thugonomics.
Honestly, congratulations to him. I can think of no
Seriously.
recipient more.
Also, just his cameos in Scooby-Doo, man's on point.
He's a hilarious dude. So I appreciate his existence. But also, he was outside of my wrestling situation. I was in the Rockian times, Triple H, China.
Yeah.
That was my time for wrestling.
You know what's super funny? I just realized that Vincent worked on that movie I just talked about with Scooby-Doo.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was on his IMDb.
Oh my God.
IMDb. That's so funny.
You guys, thank you so much for joining us. You guys are
Thank
so
you for
awesome.
having us.
So much fun to talk to you guys.
Such a fun show, man.
You guys are the best. And I want to do some quick plugs. Miskatonic High is on Kickstarter now, so spend your money and support and support Mike right now, and Ryan, but mostly Mike.
And after that, go back.
But like, just go keep doing it. Also, when you're ready to get your full wrestling on, go support Invasion from Planet Wrestletopia. You probably already support them by playing their games. Matt and Ed are awesome, so go do that, and also go pick up.
I actually have a little special announcement. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think that we're gonna add all 9 copies of Wrestletopia signed that these guys sent to us.
All right.
So graciously, and they're all signed by different people, I believe.
Okay.
And they're going to be 3 bundles of 1 through 3 of Wrestletopia.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be part of the giveaway, and then I'm going to pick something else to go along with it. So
That sounds like a really good giveaway.
yeah, that sounds like a giveaway.
So generous
Yeah.
and so.
And don't forget that you
Yeah.
can also go win Miskatonic for probably another hour until I post it. So,
So
yeah.
if you're watching the show, like, it's a good time to just get in with something.
It's good
like,
to get in on these free, amazing
ooh,
comics, man.
you know what? Name the wrestler. I'll do a post. If you name your favorite wrestler, we'll pick one of those at random.
Exactly.
And then maybe that's how
On
you
the
win.
post, it'll be favorite wrestler, and then you just have to follow Comics Academy. That's it.
Let's do it. Let's do it. You guys,
Do
thank
it.
you so much for coming. You guys are amazing. You're always welcome back on the show. We love chatting with you about comics and process, and video games and wrestling and high school and all of and definitely not hentai.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And just one last thing,
Mhm.
I wanted to thank you guys so much for donating those.
Yeah, you guys are cool.
Including Mike. He donated his copy of Miskatonic, which was really nice of him.
And
So,
so muffins all
Thank
around.
so
This has been Comics Academy, Comics Creators Club. You guys are, or this is Comics Academy doing Comics Creators Club.
Yep.
You guys are so amazing for tuning in. Check us out next week when we have some amazing shows. We're doing a show on the 1st. We're also doing our regular, we're doing Sunday, because Saturday is Free Comic Book Day, and you guys
Yeah,
are
it
doing
is.
that. You're doing something special for our Free Comic Book Day.
I will be at my local comic shop taking videos, probably talking to some people.
Mhm.
Also, probably do maybe like I want to release a video on that day because it's also May the 4th.
Of course.
So look out for that. If I don't manage to get it out in time, it will be in the couple days after. So
You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for tuning in. This has been Comics Creators Club, and we'll see you soon. Great. Bye.
bye.